Alex Albon called it eye-watering. Pierre Gasly said it made him slide too much on every corner exit. Sergio Perez admitted he had to start from zero and completely relearn how to drive a Formula One car. And Daniel Ricciardo, one of the most naturally gifted drivers of his generation, just called it aggressive. They were all describing the same thing. The way Max Verstappen sets up his Formula One car, a setup so extreme that Red Bull's own chief technical officer admitted it once sent the entire team down a development dead end. Because Verstappen was so fast, the engineers didn't realize the car was actually broken underneath him. He was hiding the problem with raw talent.
It's the mistake turned into a podium.
When Albon arrived at Red Bull in 2019, he was a promising young talent stepping into a race-winning car. He expected a challenge. What he got was closer to an existential problem. Years later, Albon described the experience with an analogy that stuck with everyone who heard it. Imagine bumping the sensitivity on a computer mouse to the absolute maximum, where any tiny movement sends the cursor darting across the screen. That, Albon said, is what the front end of Verstappen's Red Bull feels like. If you blew on the steering wheel, the car would turn. Engineers call this a pointy front end. The car responds to steering with terrifying immediacy. For Verstappen, this is exactly what he wants. For everyone else, it feels like the car is trying to hurt you, but the front end is only half the problem. With that much responsiveness up front, the rear becomes inherently unstable. On corner entry, the back wants to come around on you, get your input slightly wrong, and the whole car tries to swap ends. And here's the part that doesn't make sense. While every other driver on Earth dials that instability out to feel safe, Verstappen dials it in further. To understand why, we need to talk about what happens inside Red Bull's wind tunnel in Bedford, England. The fastest theoretical version of any Formula One car has its center of aerodynamic pressure pushed far forward over the front axle. This is the aerodynamic optimum, maximum downforce, minimum drag. On paper, the fastest configuration possible. The problem is that a car set up this way is almost undrivable. The rear has no stability. The back end is alive and moving through every phase of the corner. So when a driver runs a few laps and comes back to the garage, they ask for the same thing: more rear stability. I can't commit to the corners like this. The engineers comply. The car becomes predictable and trustworthy, but also slower. Every increment of rear stability moves the setup further from its theoretical maximum performance. Every driver on the grid makes this compromise. Every driver except Verstappen. Jenson Button, the 2009 world champion, said what Max is brilliant at is getting the best from a car, which the wind tunnel says is the best. Other drivers find that balance horrible and adjust away from it. Max just drives it like that.
Verstappen up to P10.
No compromise. No safety net. Pierre Wache, Red Bull's technical director, confirmed it from the engineering side. Max can allow more sliding on the rear, which means the car can be adjusted to be theoretically more efficient. The more talented the driver, the more rear movement he can accept. And Verstappen's own philosophy is blunt. Understeer is slow. Now here's where it gets strange. You'd expect a driver who prefers a wildly unstable car to look ragged behind the wheel. Aggressive corrections, soaring at the steering, but Verstappen's hands are among the calmest on the grid. Analysts classify him as a smooth oversteer driver. Compare that to Charles Leclerc, classified as aggressive oversteer, who visibly wrestles his Ferrari through corners with constant micro-corrections. Verstappen, in an objectively more unstable car, barely corrects at all. The car is on a knife edge, but his hands suggest he's cruising. If you watch the onboard without sound, you'd think he was on a warm-up lap. Christian Horner pinpointed where this pays off. He said the gap between Max and his teammates is rarely in high-speed corners. Gasly could match or even beat Max through fast sweepers. The difference is the entire braking phase into slow corners. Max has total confidence dealing with a loose rear, almost like a motorcycle racer, right on the edge of adhesion on entry. His braking technique is counterintuitive. Telemetry showed Verstappen often brakes earlier than Perez. He brakes at exactly the right moment, then trails the pressure deep into the corner to rotate the car, getting on throttle sooner with the car already aimed at the exit. Faster overall corner, despite what looks like a conservative initial braking point. Where this approach really gets ugly is the teammate graveyard. 5 drivers have sat beside Verstappen. Same pattern, every time. Albon described the mechanism with painful honesty. You start a little behind, but not by much. Then, as the season goes on, Max wants more front end. Sharper, sharper. As it gets sharper, he goes quicker. And to catch up, you take more risk. You push a bit, you go off, you crash, you restart. You've lost confidence. Next time, another spin. It just starts to snowball. That snowball is relentless. Each development step that makes Max faster makes the car less drivable for his teammate. The gap widens and confidence erodes. Gasly lasted half a season before demotion. Perez collapsed from Imola onward in 2024, so dramatically that Mark Hughes described him as the canary in the coal mine, exposing fundamental car problems that only Verstappen could mask. And Wache admitted that in 2020, this dynamic warped the team's entire engineering direction. He said Max's talent was a contributory cause to a development problem. His ability to control instability would be impossible for some others. They kept pushing the car toward Max's preferences because he was extracting lap time, but they had gone too far. The car was broken. Max was fast. And because Max was fast, nobody realized it was broken. Think about how absurd that is. The driver was so quick that he was actively hiding an engineering problem from a team of hundreds of people whose entire job is to find engineering problems. So, if no teammate can adapt to this setup, and the engineers confirm it sits at the theoretical limit of what the car can do, the obvious question is, how did Verstappen develop this ability in the first place? The answer is uncomfortable, and it starts on a karting track in the Netherlands, with a 4-year-old boy and a father with unfinished business in Formula 1. Jos Verstappen raced in Formula 1 during the 1990s without the machinery to contend. When Max showed aptitude at an absurd age, Jos channeled everything into building a champion. Max sat in a kart at 4.5, won his first race at 7, and the training method that matters most is this. Jos made Max practice on dry tyres on wet tracks. When rain came and every other family packed up and went home, Jos kept him on circuit, on slick tyres, in the rain, lap after lap. The boy learned to feel exactly where the grip was on a surface trying to betray him. This is the direct foundation of everything Verstappen does in Formula 1 today. That comfort with a rear end that wants to break out on you. That ability to feel grip levels on a surface that other drivers simply cannot read. All of it traces back to a child on slick tyres in the rain, learning to trust what his hands were telling him when the kart was sliding underneath. Jos also changed settings on the kart without telling Max, forcing him to diagnose changes through feel rather than data. By 15, Max had won 3 championships in a single season, 2 European titles and the KZ World Championship. The youngest driver ever to claim the gearbox class world title. Counterintuitive, watching Verstappen's earliest Formula 1 tests, noticed the karting DNA immediately. The rear would start sliding under braking, and he thought Max would destroy the tyres. Then he realized Max did it every single lap with total control.
Leader on the attack, Max Verstappen up to P10.
2 races at Interlagos, 8 years apart, prove everything we've discussed. Brazil 2016, 18 years old, dropped to 16th in a monsoon. 13 places gained in 14 laps. Behind safety cars, Verstappen did something the cameras barely captured. He systematically drove over different parts of the track, mapping grip levels, and drove over painted lines to test their grip. He checked the drainage channels. He was building a mental map of available traction that nobody else bothered to create. He overtook Rosberg around the outside of turn 3, using grip he'd already mapped. Dove inside Ricciardo at the downhill turn 11, a spot requiring absolute trust in available traction. A violent snap of oversteer near pit entry produced an instantaneous correction. Horner placed the drive alongside Senna at Monaco 1984 and Schumacher at Barcelona 1996. Brazil 2024 may have been even better. 17th on the grid, Norris on pole, torrential rain, 6 places on the opening lap. Palmer's telemetry analysis showed Verstappen braked 43 meters later than Piastri at turn 1. After a red flag, he took the lead on lap 43 and built a 19.5-second gap in 26 laps. Fastest lap after fastest lap. Palmer called it potentially Verstappen's greatest race ever. And the source of that wet weather dominance is the same thing we've been talking about the entire video. Slick tyres on wet karting tracks. A feel for rear instability that was trained into him before he could drive a road car. So where does he sit among the all-time greats? Brundle, who raced Senna and Schumacher, says the template is Senna, Schumacher, Verstappen. He finds it remarkable how similar all three are. Berger, Senna's former teammate, puts Verstappen on Ayrton's level. Newey, who designed championship cars for Mansell, Prost, Senna, Vettel, and Verstappen, says Max drives almost subconsciously, leaving processing power to optimize in real time. And Norris says Max is probably the best ever in Formula 1, and that matching him is almost impossible. So here's what all of this adds up to. Verstappen has an abnormally high threshold for rear instability that lets him operate a car at its aerodynamic optimum, while everyone else compromises. Built through childhood training in the rain, expressed through smooth, calm inputs that contradict the violence beneath him. Other all-time greats had pieces of this. Senna had the feel. Schumacher could adapt to anything. Hamilton's consistency under pressure is unmatched, but nobody has put the whole package together at this level before. And honestly, after watching what happened to 5 consecutive teammates, the scary part is there's no evidence anyone ever will.